Today I'm going to be talking about classic versus modern ThinkPads. This is going to be different from most reviews you see out there. Most reviews just go through the experience of unboxing and talk about a couple of thoughts. They show you the specs, the boot times, and if you go to websites that specialize in reviews of laptops, it's just the same shit over and over again. Here's what the box looked like, here are the specs, here's the Cinebench score, here's how this computer compares to this other Dell computer with the same specifications, and here's its PC Mark and Cinebench score. And most people don't give a flying shit of a fuck about 4% differences here and there in Cinebench scores when they're looking at this particular laptop. What they are interested in, the thing that people want to know is, did Lenovo fuck up and sodomize IBM's beautiful design of the Thinkpad? And that's what I'd like to try to answer today in this video. Over the course of this video, I'm going to try to answer this question for myself, because I honestly can't tell. I don't know if I'm biased because I own this thing now. Maybe you can tell me. So let's start with the keyboard. The first thing that you're going to notice, if you're the owner of a classic ThinkPad versus this one, is the keyboard. It's what sticks out instantly, even before I noticed that the color was different. This here is a Lenovo Thinkpad T520. This ThinkPad is from 2011, and it has suited me very well. This ThinkPad here, okay, so notice when I'm typing on this keyboard, it's perfectly steady and sturdy. And when I type on this keyboard, it is steady and sturdy, but when I start to hit hard on keys, let's see if I can zoom in. You see how the P is kind of flexing? When you're hitting keys hard, the rest of the keyboard kind of flexes, and on this one, that doesn't happen. It doesn't. And that is a big part of why this keyboard feels better than this one. You see, when I'm typing on this one, it feels like the key is actually moving with me. It feels like the key is moving back and forth with my finger. With this one, it just feels like I'm hitting a key and it's depressing and then popping back up later. With this, it feels like it's actually a fluid movement that's going along with my fingers. So even though this keyboard is amazing, I like this keyboard better for the alphabet keys and for the number keys. Let me keep that as a disclaimer. I like this keyboard better for the alphabet and number keys. Now let's move on to why I hate this keyboard. Do you see how this keyboard has the delete, home, and page up and page down in this position? Now let's look at a standard desktop keyboard. You see where these keys are? Okay, now let's look at this one. Now, what I like about a ThinkPad more than any other laptop is that it doesn't feel like a laptop to me. A lot of people don't feel comfortable doing work on laptops that they would usually do on a desktop. They sit down at a desktop and they just feel more comfortable with work. And I understand the feeling. It's like trying to use a BlackBerry for the internet, and in 2007 when you had a Curve, and then finally getting the Motorola Droid when it came out. You may think to yourself, I don't want to do this right now, but then you get the Droid and it's like, wow, I can actually view websites on my phone, and it doesn't take 45 seconds to load google.com anymore. That's great. And that's kind of how I feel about this Lenovo Thinkpad, and that's why this is special to me. When I sit down at this laptop to work and I start working on this keyboard, I don't feel like, oh, I'm on a laptop now. I feel like I'm just as ready to work as I am on a desktop. And with the trackpoint, I actually feel more capable with this ThinkPad. I feel like I can work faster than I can on a desktop. I do not feel hindered at all by the fact that I am working on a laptop. Everything is there just as it is here. And that comes from Lenovo doing a good job designing a keyboard for a laptop that is made for people who are coming from a desktop. They don't look to change everything and reinvent the wheel. They just put the wheel into this smaller section and put everything exactly where it is. Whereas this here, this tries to reinvent the wheel, and it just fucking fails. Let me just zoom in on this. It makes me sick. It makes me so fucking sick. And I'm going to explain my theory as to why this keyboard is very difficult to get used to versus this one. I'm going to do it based on how people type. Now, look at your hands while you're typing. When you're typing, you go to reach the delete or the page up key, you're probably doing something like this, and then you reach up this way, right? Now, when you do that, here's what I think is happening in your mind. See the delete key, how it's bigger than the other keys? This gives you a reference. This key is different from this. It's different from this. This delete key is unique. It is a unique key in this section of the keyboard. There's no other key that's that size. Now, when you move up here, your mind is looking for the key that's bigger than the others, and it knows that's delete. And then it knows that these right over here are reference keys, like this. Now, it references the delete key, and then it says, okay, +1 is home and end, and +2 over is page up and page down. and these feel different than the delete key. So when you're moving up here, it doesn't take any thought. Your mind automatically knows delete, home end, page up, page down. Now let's look over here. See, the F12 key is the exact same as the home key. The home is the same as the end is the end is the insert, and the insert is the same as the delete. The problem with this layout is that the key that is different from the other keys is on the outside. The key that I'm going to use as a reference is on the outside. So if I want to go and find a key up here, let's say I want to find end, I no longer go like this and find my key and then go, okay, I'm at the reference key, now I'm at the reference +1, now I'm at the reference +2. What I have to do if I want to use this delete key, which is different as my reference key, is I have to do something like this. Okay, I'm typing, now I have to do that. This is natural. This is fuck shit. Now you may think you can do this, but good luck hitting home, end, insert, or delete on a regular basis with accuracy. You can try this laptop. I fucking dare you to work quickly. And with work where you need the home, the end, and the delete key, and hit the right one on a regular basis. In the 3.5 years that I've owned this laptop, I do not remember ever hitting the wrong one. In this, it happens at least 6 times a day, and it is infuriating. And the idea that I have to stop what I am doing to look and see which key is which, the idea that I have to look and stop my thought process to see which key it is, that is what makes this a laptop. This here is a desktop in a small laptop form factor. This allows me to be just as productive as I was on a desktop, but I'm being that productive on a laptop. Here, I have to enter a different mindset. I am now using a laptop. I am using something where it's more of a pain in the ass to do the basic tasks that I do, and that is what truly brings this down from classic ThinkPad level to standard toy. That bullshit keyboard puts this Lenovo in a class with the Acers and the Asuses and the Dells and the HPs and all the other crap that no ThinkPad user is ever going to buy because it just doesn't feel like a ThinkPad. The definition of a ThinkPad to me is a machine that just works. It does what I need it to do. It doesn't break down, and it doesn't get in the way of my work. This gets in the way of my work, and that's bullshit, and it's not forgivable. Now, let's move on to the third thing on this keyboard that's different. You see how this keyboard has volume up, volume down, and mute? You see how this keyboard has volume up, volume down, and mute on the function keys? Here's why that's horseshit. Let's say I want to leave the graphical environment because something froze. In Linux, I would hit Control-Alt-F3. But I can't because right now my function keys are actually not working. They're assigned to the volume up and down, brightness up and down, and all that, hickory horse shit. and that kind of bothers me because while I'm not hitting, Wi-Fi on and off and zoom in and switch windows on a regular basis, I do use volume up and down all the fucking time. I need my volume up and down to be always available, so I have them there. But at the same time, if I want to quit a program, whoops, I need to hit Function Alt F4 now. I can't hit Alt F4, I have to do Function Alt F4. Or if I want to boot into a different disk, I have to hit Function F12. And I'll look at this. Good luck reaching that shit with one hand. You cannot. It is a pain in the ass because I need to use these on a regular basis. I need volume up and down, but I can't have volume up and down on my function keys at the same time. And that's something that this laptop has. This is something that Lenovo has had for over 10 years to my knowledge that they decided to throw out on this shit. And even though I don't like these compromises, even though I hate this, and I hate this one row of function keys with no volume up and down, at the very least, that is a compromise. A compromise is not necessarily a failure because you're gaining one thing at the expense of something else. So you're gaining real estate at the expense of functionality. What is downright retarded are removing the stop, play, last track, and next track buttons. Because on this machine, if you hit function and down, it'll pause the track. If you hit function and left, it'll go back to the previous track, and that's pretty cool. On this keyboard, they remove that. If you hit function and up or function and down, it doesn't do jack shit. Now, there is absolutely no real estate to be gained or lost, or there is no increased cost whatsoever in having function media keys. There's none. You can't tell me that there's no room for it because it's just you're reusing the same fucking key. On this machine, up, down, left, and right now have one function. You do not lose anything in real estate. It does not cost anything extra to make it so that when you hit function and down, track pauses. That is just ridiculous. That was removed, and there is no good reason for it. At the very least, while I hate these changes and I have no respect for these changes, I understand that they were made as a result of a compromise. Tell me what you are gaining, Lenovo. Tell me what is gained by removing the stop, the play, the back, and the forward. That is ridiculous. Now, another thing that's commented on with this machine is the durability of the machine. People say that it's not durable because, oh, they lean on it and it bends and it makes noises. Yes, I'm going to put all my body weight on this right now. Now, you see how that's flexing? That's what it's supposed to do, you morons. A laptop is supposed to flex if you put all your weight on it. Look at the classic ThinkPad. Look, see this? See that? That's flexing. That is what a laptop is supposed to do. What a laptop is not supposed to do when you put all your weight on it is crack. That does not make it less durable. The idea that this machine is any less durable than the older ones, I think, is just a bunch of crap. And people will also comment on how the display assembly is so flimsy and so thin now. Do you want to know why this is thin? This is the area where I have to defend the newer ThinkPads. Because that's called progression of technology. Laptops used to use very thick screens like this one. See this? Very thick. Now laptops use a screen that is like this. See this? Very thin. So let's put them right next to each other so you can see. See the difference? So what the fuck is the point in using old technology to make the display thicker for no good reason? I opened this up to replace my screen, and it's just as durable as the old ones. Again, I can most likely drop this off of a ladder and it'll be just fine. I haven't dropped it off a ladder just yet, but I assure you that this has been dropped off of a chair in my apartment 5 times by my cat, and as you can see, it is a standard ThinkPad. Those hinges ain't going nowhere. I open this thing to tighten the hinges once a year because, you know, my cat knocks it off of the same chair every time I go to the bathroom without fail. And this is the same. This is built the same way. It's very sturdy. It's a standard ThinkPad when it comes to sturdiness. Usually it doesn't even move back and forth, the bottom. When I'm moving it, I actually have the bottom off of this computer right now, which is why it's moving a little bit. Yeah, so this is a standard durable ThinkPad. Now let's talk about the screen. The screen it's a standard ThinkPad screen, which means that if you buy this with the standard resolution screen, it is going to suck. You are going to regret having bought it. It is disgusting. And I wanted to take pictures to show you the differences, but the camera on this camcorder is just not good enough for you to appreciate it. If you use the standard screen, it's not even a question of resolution. It's not a question of viewing angle, because a lot of people say the viewing angle on the standard screen is bad. The standard screen is so bad when you're sitting right in front of it that it is disgusting, and I consider it to be utterly useless. I would not use that screen for anything. The text is blurry, everything is garbled. It doesn't even look like it's able to display the color black. It looks like a black curtain with an incandescent light bulb behind it. It's just a piece of shit. So I upgraded it to this 1080p IPS screen, which I bought online from Screen Country for about 70-80 bucks. We stock a lot of screens here, but we don't have specialty screens or rare screens anymore, so on occasion I buy from other vendors. Screen Country is kick-ass, by the way. They sent me a screen that's no dead pixels, very affordable price, excellent packaging, and the laptop is great. And instead of spending like an extra $2 or $250 or $3, that's what Lenovo usually wants for the 1080p screen, I spent an extra 70 bucks, and I can sell the old one for 30 or 40, which is pretty cool. So in terms of screen, it does have a good screen if you buy the good screen. And if you buy this $800-something laptop and go with the cheap screen, it's just a piece of shit. When this thing is sitting in the store at $850 or $950 or $1,000 and it has that low resolution screen in it, it looks worse than laptops that cost $600. It looks like a laptop that costs $300, which is probably a big part of why this machine does not sell well. Because even if you get the $900 or $1,000 configuration, you're often getting it with that shitty TN, disgusting, low resolution, blurry cock and balls panel. So if you're going to buy this, either buy it with a 1080p screen or just buy a $300 laptop at Best Buy, because seriously, that does ruin the experience of using this computer. Now let's move on to the trackpad, because that's the other part that a lot of people talk about. Now, we're going to talk about common sense here. I'm not going to use fancy engineering terms, and I'm not going to get into the subjectiveness of why I dislike this trackpad. I want to keep things simple, so I'm going to discuss basic common sense reasons as to why this trackpad is a piece of shit. Now, let me show you how I type on a keyboard. I want you to tell me which trackpad you think is going to cause me less pain. Notice how my arm is almost always... notice how my palm is almost always over the trackpad, so I'm always touching this fucking thing. Okay, now let's move on to the classic ThinkPad. Notice how on rare occasion this small piece touches the trackpad, but for the most part, my hands are never touching the trackpad. See that? That is what makes this trackpad good, and that trackpad an annoying piece of shit. Because I frequently find myself, even with updated drivers, whether I'm in Windows or in Linux, touching this fucking trackpad, and something moving or closing on the screen because I've touched it. That is annoying. Now, and it happens because this trackpad is simply too big for this machine. It happens because the trackpad has been increased in size. And while it is cool to have a bigger trackpad because other companies have bigger trackpads, the reason Lenovo users like having their trackpads small is so that they don't hit random shit on their screen while they're typing. Now, you may be thinking that's not an issue. Well, you don't own a laptop repair store. If you owned a laptop repair store, you would have no idea how many people bring their laptops here saying the mouse moves on its own, and then I sit with them and I watch them type, and they're doing this while they're typing. You have no idea how many arguments I've had with people telling them there's nothing wrong with your computer besides the fact that your hand is resting over the trackpad. I'm telling you this because in 2008, 2009, even 2010, I was racking my fucking brain trying to figure out what was wrong with a perfectly good computer that a customer would bring back 3 or 4 times in a row for 3 to 4 different free estimates, only to figure out that they were causing the trackpad, the cursor, to move on the screen by hovering their hand over the trackpad. It's user behavior, and a lot of people don't blame the trackpad. That's why a lot of people don't think this is a problem. Most people think they have a virus. They think that their computer is freezing. They think that shit is closing on its own when they're actually doing it with their palm. This is a serious problem. And the reason it is not reported often is because most of the users who have this problem don't even know what it is. They just know that their computer is not working, but they don't know that it is because of the trackpad being huge. And I have employed people that have actually replaced trackpads 2 or 3 times, and it just made me sad because they didn't take 20 seconds to look at the user behavior before wasting like 70, 80 bucks in parts replacing shit that worked. Now let's go over the second point, which is common sense, which are the trackpad buttons. This is something that cannot be fixed unless Lenovo removes this design and puts 3 buttons over here instead of this one click point horse shit. Now this is an amazing part of common sense design that they got right with the old classic ThinkPad. Now I want you to pay attention to where my thumbs go on this trackpad. I mean the trackpoint buttons. So you notice how when I'm typing like this, because of how human hands are set up, my thumbs are diagonal? Now have you noticed how the ThinkPad button in the middle, the middle scroll, is actually set up and designed for people's thumbs when they're diagonal? So if I want to scroll right now, you see how this button goes up like this? It's a triangle. It's not a square. It's not a square. It is actually a triangle. And it does this, so I can scroll without having to bend my finger. See, I actually bent my finger the first time I used this, and the reason I bent my finger is because I'm so used to that fucking new ThinkPad. And this is, it hurts, it's painful, it's a pain in the ass, and it's not natural. Again, the whole idea behind the ThinkPad, the reason I love the ThinkPad is because I never have to think about it. It just works. It doesn't get in my way. I just feel as productive on it as I do on a desktop. I feel productive on it. That's what defines a ThinkPad. And one thing that hurts my productivity is having to think about how to use it when the machine gets in the way. And the machine gets in the way when I have to bend my finger just to get basic usage out of it. I can't tell you how many times I wanted to middle click that I have right clicked, and it's because of the way that button is set up. and it's a pain in the ass. See, not only is it the separation between the buttons physically that makes it easy to locate them. That's what most people think is making it easy. The other thing that makes it easy is the fact that this button on this ThinkPad is shaped differently, and the left and the right click are shaped differently along with it. So that now when I'm using this ThinkPad over here, in Windows and in Linux, this section right here, this is a square that is the middle button. This is a rectangle that is the right click, and this is a rectangle that is the left click. And let me tell you that that sucks balls, because when I do this, I right click. When I do this, I'm left clicking instead of middle clicking, and it drives me out of my fucking mind. It's gonna drive you nuts if you're a one-handed user. To be honest with you, as a two-handed user, I only get the occasional error. But as a one-handed user who's reaching over to left click, oh, you are not left clicking. You are right clicking and middle clicking as you do this like crazy, because this section over here, it's not like it's cut off. It's not like this is the middle click, so that when I go over here and I'm reaching over, I don't hit middle click. See, on this machine, on the other Lenovo, it's sectioned off with this triangle design, so that when I'm using one hand to reach over, I'm not clicking the wrong button. But on this machine, it's like this, so that when I'm reaching over to click here, oftentimes the ball of my joint over here is hitting the middle click, and the same is true over here. When I'm trying to right click something, often the ball of my joint is, I'm hitting middle click like crazy when I'm using this with one hand and left clicking. And I know what you're thinking. Why are you using a computer with one hand? You're not supposed to use a laptop that way. I don't know. Maybe I was drinking something. Maybe I was asking somebody to hand me a folder, and while they're handing me a folder, I'm trying to scroll to the bottom of my email. I don't know why I do the things I do. I just do them over the course of my day. And my computer is either there to make that easier, to make my life easier, or my computer is there to make my life more of a pain in the ass. And the classic ThinkPad makes my life easier through common sense design. The new ThinkPad is a pain in the fucking dick. Now, let's go over some other parts of this. Now, some of you may be wondering at this point, why do I have a MacBook Air here? What is the point of having a MacBook Air in a comparison? Well, a lot of people have said that Lenovo has sold out. A lot of people say that Lenovo's are now the same as Apple's, and they're trying to be like Apple, and that they're trying to do this stuff to get more business and to get a different type of user to use their product. And honestly, I want to show you how I think that Lenovo is such a fucking fail in 2014 that they don't even know how to sell out properly. Now, some of you may be wondering, what is a MacBook Air doing here in a comparison to Lenovo's? Well, a lot of people have said that Lenovo is selling out, that when you buy a Lenovo, you might as well just be getting a MacBook Air. This is the direction that they're going in. And honestly, if they were selling out because they wanted to open themselves up to a new demographic and make more money, I'm okay with that. I really am. At least I could mourn the line properly. I could mourn the ThinkPad that I loved, and I could move on and say I understand why they did it. But here's why this is a complete fucking failure. Let me tell you something about the demographics of the people who use this computer. You've made the trackpad bigger, and you've made it one button like this. You've made it a little slimmer, and you've changed this thing's color. But let me tell you something. The people who would buy this would never, ever, 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 ever in a million fucking years buy this thing. And they're not going to buy this because you made it a little slimmer, a little grayer, you gave it a Chiclet keyboard, and you gave it this little one-button trackpad. The people who buy this because they like polished Apple products in the look and the experience. The people who buy this, maybe, just maybe, you might be able to convince them to buy one of those HP, Envy, or Samsung Ultrabooks that look almost exactly like it, but you're not going to buy this. This here is not sexy. This here is not fashionable, it's not sexy, it's not cool looking, and you know what? That's exactly what makes it cool to the demographic of people who use it. Above all, what kills me about the new series of ThinkPads is that they don't even know how to sell out properly. A lot of people have said that Lenovo has sold out with the creation of this new ThinkPad, that they want people to buy, they want the demographic of people that buy this. That's why I included a MacBook Air on the table today. And They have not even done that properly. Let me talk a little bit about demographics. The people who buy this MacBook Air, they're the type of people who sit in coffee shops. They're the type of people that are designing new clothes. They're the type of people that are writing songs and using Logic and doing creative things. They're the hipsters. They're the fashionistas. That's who buy this computer. The people who buy this computer, these are the people who troll Slashdot. These are the people who make fun of you on IRC. These are the people who are sitting on Freenode trying to code up, fix the bugs in Pulse Audio at 2 in the morning. A different type of person uses this than the type of person who uses that. The type of person who uses this would not in a million fucking years but say, you know what, I don't really want a MacBook anymore because Lenovo decided to remove a row of keys from the keyboard and have a one-button trackpad. And the people who use this computer are not going to decide that they want to use this computer because, oh, it's like the MacBook Air is thinner. I'm just tired of having a thick black Lenovo. The people who use this computer are up in arms and shitting bricks over the fact that this key moved half an inch from here to here. Do you think these people are going to buy a computer where you don't even have an option between delete and backspace? Fuck no, they are not. This computer does not appeal to people who use this because it's a pain in the ass. And this computer does not appeal to people who use this machine because it's still a brick. It's still thick, it still runs Windows, it's still not fashionable. You cannot tell me by turning this to gray that it's now a fashionable and stylish computer. You cannot tell me by making the trackpad an inch bigger that it's now amazingly stylish and hip and cool. No, it's not. This computer is beautiful for different reasons. It is not sexy, it is not stylish, it is not fashionable, but to the people who love it, to the people who do troll Slashdot and spend time in IRC, this machine is gorgeous because it is functional. Because when we sit down to use this computer, it doesn't bother us. When we sit down to use this computer, it feels and works in a certain way and is natural. And when it drops off of our lap, because it's 2 in the morning and we're tired and falling asleep from work, instead of breaking into pieces, a small piece of it just cracks off and it keeps going on its way. You see, this machine right here takes the worst of this and the worst of this, and it puts it into an expensive package. Now, am I saying that you should not try to improve on things over time? No. What I'm saying is, how about you improve on the shit that actually needs improving on? Like battery life. This computer, by the way, with all the power saving features on, with Wi-Fi off, with the brightness turned up, I was watching a movie on the subway, and when I get to the 1 hour and 45 minute mark of my movie, it says low battery, critical 5%. This thing barely reaches 2 hours on a movie. This thing will play at least 2 movies before I even get to 40%. Let me show you why. These are the things that Lenovo should actually work to improve. And now let's look at the bottom of the computer. And again, common sense. I'm not going to get into engineering, electronics engineering, design, ACPI, power management, because I'm not going to talk about shit that I know nothing about. Let's keep it at common sense. You see this computer? This is barely even a computer. This is a battery with a computer attached to it. The battery of this computer is pretty much the entire fucking thing. Look at this battery. Look at this. Like, this is the battery, and this is the motherboard. The motherboard of the computer, you could fit 2 motherboards in the space of 1 fucking battery. Now, let's look at the bottom of the Lenovo. Again, we're just sticking to common sense here. This is the motherboard. This to this to this to this to this. This entire fucking thing is the board. And this is the battery! Look at this thing. Half of the people watching this probably have a bigger dick than this computer has a fucking battery. And also keep in mind that this battery right here, this is the actual cell. If I hit this, I'm going to puncture it and it's going to blow up in my face. This is hard plastic, so this is a casing. So inside of there is an even smaller fucking battery than what's in here. And you wonder why these things have such shitty battery life. This computer's battery life is abysmal compared to that of a Mac, and it's not just the operating system. Again, the common sense of the fact that this computer allocates almost the entire fucking machine to the battery and still manages to get a kick-ass amount of productivity and hardware inside this small space, whereas this machine is all hardware and almost no battery. Just the idea that you have to buy of extended battery, that there is an extended battery offered for this machine, is a problem. The battery that comes with the computer in 2014 should be enough that I never think to myself, I need to buy an extended battery. I would even be okay with the battery being screwed inside the computer if they could make the battery bigger like this, because I understand you have to have it in this plastic casing and everything if it's going to be on the exterior. Give me a battery that lasts 6, 7, 8 hours, and I don't mind having to replace it myself by unscrewing the computer. Because a lot of people will say that the battery is not user replaceable because they inserted it inside the computer. Yes, it is. Let's talk about demographics again. People who buy Thinkpads, they're the type of people that are comfortable using a Phillips screwdriver to replace a battery. Do something to make the battery last in the computer instead of coming up with ridiculous ways to make the trackpad and the keyboard more of a pain in the dick. So in conclusion, I like this computer. It's still a ThinkPad, but it is much less of a ThinkPad than the ThinkPads that used to be made, because Lenovo has forgotten what it is people love about this computer. About the things that people love about this computer are not the fact that it's stylish, or not the fact that you have less row of keys, or not the fact that it has a big trackpad. People like that when you sit down at this computer, it is easy to use, just as you'd be using a desktop, even though it's a laptop. And when you sit down at this, you're a little bit more handicapped than you were when you sat down with this. Am I going to keep this? Probably yes, because honestly, I am sick and tired of carrying this thing around. This is much heavier than this one. It's not a fair comparison because this is a 15-inch and this is a 14-inch. And also, I do like the way the keyboard feels on this. And also, this thing is actually a lot faster because it is newer. But am I happy with it? Not really. And if it continues going like this, I'm going to be off ThinkPads altogether. So hopefully this has answered some of your questions. Hopefully this comparison is helpful. Hopefully somebody at Lenovo sees this video and makes a T450p that has a standard button layout and a standard keyboard layout, but I sincerely doubt that's going to happen. Oh well, goodbye. Today I'd like to talk about classic versus modern ThinkPads. There's a huge war going on out there about how Lenovo is ruining the ThinkPad line and how it used to be great when IBM had it and how it's not that great anymore. And there's also a lot of people who have been,